Okay, so I've been thinking about things, and there's only so many things I can show you at once, and I don't want to bombard everything into one video. But I'd like to fix the validation in that prior example and add in some exception handling. I'd like to probably even look at adding an edit button, although it's going to be a pretty hacky edit button. It's probably going to use input dialogs to get the input because there's a lot of other things we can't talk about yet. We haven't done multi-form designs, we haven't had showing and hiding components yet, so which way do we do it? I'll show you one way, I'll show you the hacky way. Other things we could look at adding is adding autosave on exit, setting the title. That's probably about it for now. If I think of any more things, I'll add them in here anyway. Okay, so easiest one out of all those is set the title. Let's do that. So we go into our GUI constructor, that's our GUI class, and we go, get ready for it, here it is, set, title. And that should probably be staff home, not stag home, staff home phone app, or staff app, something like that anyway, whatever you want to call it. If you want to put a version number in there, as you can as well. Probably version 0.3 at the moment. Okay, so just set title, that's all you need to do, and that puts a title up in our window. There it is. Okay. Probably another thing I can do while I'm here is setting the location of the window, and you can do that in your constructor. All these things you can do in your constructor, or you can do them down here in your main method wherever the frame object is created. So you can do it there or in your constructor. I'll do it here since we're and it's a set location call. So what that's going to do is it's going to set the top left coordinate of the window when the frame or the frame first appears. And mine's appearing out of camera shot, and I had to keep moving it, so I want to make it so it appears well inside the camera shot. So 200 across and 200 down should do it. Okay, so that's all it is. Set location, Control 1, Control 2, and there the window is popping up in my record area instead of popping off out here, and I had to drag it in each time. So that was just a little bit frustrating. Okay, so we've got the set title as well, set location. And set locations via the set location method, set titles via the set title method. Okay, auto save on exit's a good one. Okay, so making it so your program does something when it's exiting is actually interesting. So the first thing you want to do is turn off the set default close operation. So we want to have the default close operation, which is do nothing on close. So we'll turn that one off, the exit on close. We don't no longer want to do that. We want to run our own exit method on close. Okay, so now we go back up to our constructor. Here it is. And we want to just anywhere in here's fine. I'll also do it there. What we're going to do is set the default close operation to JFrame. Do nothing on close. Okay, so that's accessing a constant in the JFrame class, which signifies that we don't do anything on close. So when I click the little X icon in the top right hand corner, our application won't close. It'll do nothing. Okay, next thing we're going to do is add a little bit of code. It's going to look a little bit nasty. Add window listener. Add window listener. That didn't look right. New window adapter. And then we open our curly brackets, we close our curly brackets, close the round brackets, semicolon. Got to keep everything in line as you go, otherwise you can get in the muddle here. So inside here we want to write a little public window closing event, public, void window closing, and that takes in a window event parameter, event E, doesn't matter what you call it. open curly brackets, close curly brackets. You'll see as I'm coding, I'm always keeping my curly brackets open and closed together. Exit application. So that's the little method we're going to write now. So that was the hard part is putting in all this plumbing. The easy part now is we can just write a little exit application method, and that's the code that we'll run now whenever we close our application. Okay, so we need to write a little method now, exit application. I'll do it right down the end here. I usually put mine in some sort of order. We'll make it a private method. We probably should make all those private methods. Exit application, take off the semicolon, open curlies, close curlies. Let's make our clear data private as well. We'll make our write file private. We'll make our refresh data is already private. Our read file is already private. Add data, add text data. That was a bad spelling of test data. Our constructor's got to be public, otherwise we can't create objects, so everything else is fine. Okay, so when we exit the application, we could do a whole lot of things. We could display a confirmation dialog to the user. Are you sure you want to exit? So this would be the place to do that. We could save data to a database. We could do all sorts of things if we wanted to, but all we're going to do is save our data to our file. So that just means calling our write file method and passing in our file name. Okay, so while we're here, let's make a constant out of that. We've repeated it 4 times now, so let's make a constant out of it, because that's 3 times too many. So we'll go up here to our top of our class. I put all my constants at the very top of the class, right up here. So constants can be public because they're read-only, so they can be public. It's safe to make them public. You can make them private if you want, but there's no harm them being public. They can't be changed. Public static final string file, and constants are uppercase, file name, or even better, data file name equals, and I did a control V because I had it still in a buffer or clipboard. So there we've got a static constant called data file name. So now what I can do is I can search for StaffPhone. Just replace those with data file name. There's another one. Data file name, and there's a 4th one. There it is there. Okay, so that's our exit application done. So now, control 1, control 2. Let's add a record. So add Fred Flintstone. I added him before, but I didn't save the file, so I lost him. Okay, so he's there. Let's add another one. Barney Rubble. Any odd number will do. Okay, so there's our staff. Now we can just exit. So if we click that little X icon up there, okay, so you'll see something tricky happen then. We've got 6 records written, but our application never closed. Okay, so we left something out. So when we run our exit application method, there's one little bit of code we missed out of that. So let's now add that in. Okay, so now we've got a Java program we can't actually close. So what we might do is run Task Manager, bring up Task Manager here, find our Java program, which is there it is there running. That's our Java application running, and we'll just click on the End Task. Okay, so I've selected my Java program, End Task, and it's gone. Okay, so that's it. So what we're missing is when you tell Java you're going to handle your own exiting, which we did by overriding the window adapter method, window closing, you also have to take charge of exiting your program. So that's system.exit, and inside round brackets here we put an error code or an exit code, and if we put a negative value, that indicates an error. 0 indicates everything's okay, and you might use positive values as well to indicate everything's okay, you know, but we'll just put 0, and that generally means all is okay. Okay, so whatever called this program, if something did call it, you can get back the value, the exit value when the program exits, and if it's 0, everything's okay. So, okay, so that's it. That's all we had to do. Control 1, Control 2. There's all our data, and let's just close it. And then we get 6 records written, and that's our text pad message there saying press any key to continue. Okay, so that's that. So we can tick off the next one now. Let's have a look at our little list. We've done the set title, we've done the set location, we've auto-saved the file on exit. Phew. Okay, so just 2 things to go. Let's probably fix the validation next. So maybe by now you've done some exception handling, maybe you haven't. There's many ways we could do it. We don't have to use Java's built-in exception handling. We can do it other ways. I think what I'll do for now, because I'm not sure how much work you've done by the time you've viewed this video, I'll assume you haven't done exception handling, and I'll hand it the old non-exception handling way. Okay, so let's look at that. So we'll go up to our class up here. So we're into our staff class, and I'll add another private data item. Boolean, it's a Boolean one, this one. Is data valid? Okay, so call it whatever you like, data valid or is data valid. I'll make it just data valid actually. Okay, and in any methods that change any data, so in the constructors or in any mutator methods, the first thing I do is I'll set data valid equals false. Okay, and then down here, so it's false still. If any error happens here, it's still false. Otherwise, we're inside here where everything's okay, and I'll set data valid to true. Okay, so I'm just keeping track of a little flag, a Boolean flag, and I'm just setting it to true. I'm setting it to false at any method that can change class data, and I'm setting it to true only when all of the validation checks have passed. Okay, now this isn't exception handling. This is the old way you could do things, and I'm doing it this old way because I'm not sure how much or if any exception handling students have done by this time. So, okay, so we need one more little method, and that's get data valid or is data valid. It's a Boolean method because it's returning a Boolean, and we'll call it get data valid, or is data valid is probably a better name. Is data valid, and all it's going to do is return data valid. Okay, so down here in our StaffPhoneGUI class, when we add data, there's an add data method here. We create a new staff object, and if there's any errors occur, they'll be fired off in the constructor here by swing dialogs. So what we're going to do now, before we add that new staff member to our array list, is if is data valid for our new staff member equals true, then we can add them to our array list. Display the message to the console screen if we still want to do that, and refresh the text area. Okay, so we try and create a new staff object with the name and the phone user input. If everything's valid, if all the data they typed in is valid, then is valid will return true, and then they're safe to add that new staff member to our array list and display a message saying everything's been added, and refresh your text area. Okay, if the data's not valid, we don't need to display the message, and we don't need to refresh the text area, and we certainly don't want to add bad data to our array list. So we want to keep our data pure. Okay, now that's not the ideal way to do it. The ideal way would be to use exception handling, but I'm not sure, like I say, in what order you might have done things. So if you've done things the exception handling way, that's even better. What you could do then is, instead of having that data valid flag, if there's any errors, don't even display a dialog. Throw new, whatever exception it is you want to throw, exception. Okay, so that's the sort of thing you'd want to do. And then the calling method back in the StaffPhoneGUI would have a try catch, and the catch would catch that exception and display a dialog. Okay, so that's the best way to do it, but I'm not sure if you're at that stage yet. So I'll do it the old-fashioned way, just so I don't leave anyone behind and start introducing things before you've learnt them. Okay, so we'll do it the old way for now. Okay, so that's validation. The edit button, it's a big one. So if we want the user to be able to, let's just run our application and have a think about it. Okay, so if we want the user to be able to edit one of these records, we'll probably put an edit button in down here. Now ideally, we would select a record in our list, and that would be highlighted, and we'd click the edit button, and then we'd pop up another form which had the data for that record in it that the user could change. Okay, that would be the ideal way, but I don't think anyone's at at this stage yet. So we've got to go back and do it a really simplistic, pretty hacky way. So I don't want to introduce too much too quick. I don't want to introduce multiple forms when you haven't done multiple forms yet. I don't want to. We haven't worked out how to click a text area row and make it selected yet. We haven't done a whole lot of things. So I'll do it an old hacky way. So we'll add an edit button down here, and what it will do is it'll prompt them to enter the name of a staff member. And like if I want to enter Mike's details, I have to enter Mike O. Okay, so I'll enter Mike O. And then it will pop up dialogs for the new name and the new phone number. Okay, and then we'll create a staff object based on that new data and overwrite the ArrayList location for Mike with the new data, and then refresh it. Okay, so we've got a fair few things to do there. It's a fair few steps, and we'll break it down and just do it slowly. Okay, so let's make a start. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is an edit button. We'll go down to our GUI, edit. Okay, and probably do the edit button after the add. Okay, so we'll add the edit button to the user interface after the add, and we need a action listener for our new button. I'll just call it edit data. It could be a better name than that, like all of those names. We'll just call it edit data for now. So that's what we're going to need to implement, an edit data method. So we'll scroll down, and I'll just put it after the add data method, just so they're in the same sort of vicinity. Private void. Okay, so let's just map out our steps again. We want to prompt user for a name. Then we want to search our array list for that name. If match found, prompt for new name, prompt for phone number, and we're going to be doing all these promptings with input dialogs, which is horribly hacky, but that's all we can really do at this stage. I can't show you multiple forms, and advanced GUI techniques of hiding and showing components and hiding and showing frames and that are probably a bit too much at this stage. So I'll just do it the horrible hacky way, and then you can adapt it later on in a term when you've learnt more about GUI development. So if match found, prompt the name, prompt phone number, create new staff object based on that data, and overwrite the old staff member in the array list. And if match not found, so a matching staff member isn't found, so they enter a name and that's not in our array list, display an error. Okay, so we'll just break that down and do it bit by bit, because it is quite involved. Okay, so let's prompt the user for a name. We know how to do that because we've done it up here. enter name to edit. Okay, so we just make it clear to the user that they are editing a record. And then what we want to do is loop through our array list. And we've got a nice little loop down here. We've got a nice little loop already, so I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to grab that loop down here. Okay, that's a loop through our array list. And I'll declare a boolean called match found. So I'll try and keep to our plan as much as possible. I'll call it match found. If name dot compare to Okay, so what I'm doing here, I'm comparing the name the user typed in, okay, into the input dialog. I'm comparing that to the current one in the array list. So I'm looping through all the array list items. I'm comparing it to that record's name. And if that compared to returns 0, then we've got a match. Okay, so down here I can say match found equals true. And I also want to keep track of the location. Location is -1 just for safety. Location. So this is where the data is in the array that we've matched, equals k. So that's the index of the current location in the array list. Okay, so now we can, if match found is equal to false, so a match wasn't found, we could display an error to the user saying, sorry, your data wasn't found. Otherwise, we could go ahead and do the next bit of the processing. So let's do the match found equals false part, because that's pretty easy. I'll get a dialog, and I don't like doing these things twice, so I'll go and grab this one up here. It's much easier to copy and paste than it is to type things again. Okay, so match found equals false, J option pane, error, staff, okay, so I'm just going to tell the user error, staff, and the name you entered inside single quotes could not be found. It's just a bit of a message there for the user. Okay, so otherwise if the match was found, we're in here now, we're in this else if, the else part of the if statement. What do we want to do? We want to prompt the user for a new name, prompt the user for a phone, create a new staff object, and overwrite the one in the array list. Okay, so that's pretty easy. A lot of that's just what we did up here with our add data. So let's grab this bit of code as well. A lot of it is very similar, and we'll plonk it in the else part, and we'll indent it. Okay, so now we're in the else part of our branch. So a match was found. The staff member is in the array list. Array list. Oh, that's a bad spell of array list. Okay, so we're prompting him for a new name, a new phone. Enter, and we just make it really clear. New name, enter new phone. Try and create a new staff member out of that. If the data is valid for that new staff member, then we don't want to add them to the array list. We want to overwrite the existing staff member. So what we need to do is get our location and go staff array list dot set. Okay, so we're going to set the location in that array list, which is where we found our original staff member, to the new staff member. Okay, so we're not adding them to the array list, we're overwriting the existing staff member. So it's using the set method. So we're setting the location where the old staff member was found, and we're going to overwrite them with their new details. New name, new phone number. So we can take out that add there. We don't need that anymore. That's in the add method. And we'll say staff member updated. And the last thing we want to do is refresh our text area. Okay, because the data's changed in our text area, in our array list. And that should be pretty close to it. I think that's pretty well done. We've followed all those steps, we've done everything, we've been nice and methodical. It's very hard to make a mistake when you're nice and methodical and think about things. Okay, control 1. Oops, I made a mistake. There you go, spoke too soon. String name. Variable name has already been declared, so we've used name twice. Oops. So I'll make this one up here search name. And that'll be search name.compare_to. Okay. And then we're prompting user for a new name and a new phone number. So that's okay. We're all okay now. Control 1. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, and it's not name. It's search name. So in our dialog we want to say search name could not be found. There we go. Two little tiny errors. Okay, let's run that. Control 2. Okay, so let's now click the edit button. And the dialog's asking which person do you want to edit? And I'll say Wilma. And it will say error, Wilma cannot be found. So that bit's working fine. Let's now click edit again, and I'll enter my go. Enter new name. I'll change my name to XYZ. I don't know why. And I'll change my phone number to all zeros. Oh, I won't do that because it might look like an error. There we go. Okay. And there it is. So my code got overwritten by XYZ and the new phone number. So we've updated our array list with our new data, and the message on the screen is staff member updated. So if we exit our program, 6 records written, let's run it again to make sure our change was permanent, and there it is, XYZ. So everything's working beautifully. Okay, so that's the edit. Editing in a hacky way. Like I said, a much better way would be to, when you click the edit button, pop up a screen with text fields on it and labels where the user could see the existing values and update them to whatever they wanted, and click the save button, and that would update the array list. But that's just a bit more advanced than where we are. Okay, so we'll go back to our roadmap. So we've done the edit button in a hacky way, but it works, and that's something you could improve later in the term when you've learned a bit more GUI development work. And we did talk about exception handling, but I'm not sure if you've done it already by the time you see this video. So I did show you briefly how to do it by throwing your exception inside the validation parts of the code in the staff class, and letting the method that called that or created the object handle the exceptions with a catch clause. That's something you certainly could do later in the term too when you've covered exception handling. Okay, so I think that's all we can do for now. I hope that was useful. Thanks for watching.